There's the vote.
Mr. Deaton?
Yes.
Mr. Flake?
Yes.
Mr. McNeely?
Yes.
Mr. Mills?
Yes.
Mr. Mimmo?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes.
Mr. Riggs?
Yes.
Mr. Stolper?
Yes.
Next item of business is C. Would you read that, please, Ms. Young?
Be it enacted by the Quorum Court of the County of Carroll, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled, an ordinance authorizing the funding of 2 dispatcher positions in the Carroll County Central Dispatch by the Berryville Police Department and the Green Forest Police Department. Whereas there presently exists a need for an agreement between Berryville Police Department and Green Forest Police Department with the Carroll County Sheriff's Office to each fund 1 dispatcher employee position within the Carroll County Central Dispatch, 2 dispatcher positions. And now therefore be it enacted by the Quorum Court of Carroll County, State of Arkansas, that the Berryville Police Department shall fund 1 dispatcher position, and the Green Forest Police Department shall fund 1 dispatcher position, an employee of the Carroll County Central Dispatch. This is in consideration for night and weekend dispatch services provided by the Carroll County Dispatch.
Move it, Al.
Larry moved to adopt.
I'll second.
Ron second. Any discussion?
Yes. Well, first of all, I will say that I sponsored this. The sheriff called me, and out of courtesy to him, I told him I would sponsor it and put it on the table for discussion, and I almost pulled it this morning from the agenda, but I really think it needs to be put on the table and put to rest and discussed and voted on and settled. Like I said, I sponsored it, but I don't agree with it. I will, if I can, have a second. I do agree with one thing. When the agreement was made with the cities, back when Phil Jackson went to them, he did talk about offered to not charge for housing prisoners in exchange for the mayors at that time helping to get it passed for the sales tax. Because we were in a desperate situation. There's a lot of people don't really know how close at the time we were to getting the jail shut down. And we did not, to my knowledge, discuss the dispatchers. But regardless of that, the way the ballot title does read, it covers the central dispatch and takes care of that in its own way. I might also explain, we've had a lot of questions over the years of why the jail tax was not a sunset tax. We knew when we built a bigger jail that it was going to cost more to operate it. And the first question is, well, why should it cost more for a new, modern facility than it would the older one? There was a lot of things in the older one, from using dispatchers and jailers to cover 2 positions, things that we knew were not going to happen, were state mandated to not happen when we went into a new facility and have to have more people, that we were going to have continuing money to operate the jail. For instance, Newton County has a new jail right now, but they don't have the money to operate it. So that is one reason that we didn't sunset the tax. Another reason is from the day that 911 system was passed by the voters, it has never took in enough money to cover what 911 costs, and it was always supplemented each year out of county general to make it pay. So that was part of the continuing jail tax money was going to be used for too. And I think with the continuing sales tax money and not sunsetting the tax, that we can provide the dispatching for the cities because they'll help them pay for it too. And that's my opinion.
Jack?
I got a question for the sheriff. In the ordinance, you're asking for 2 dispatchers. In the letter you mailed out, you're asking for 1.
The reason I sent out that letter is because of the discussion I had with a lot of people. And my feeling was this, is that in order to get this accomplished, if we can go back to the way it was prior, when you were only paying for a half dispatcher, and put it off until January, I was agreeable to go with he's paying for a half and then paying for full. That's the reason for it.
Matt, I got one other question. If the prisoner counts are down to 2012, what I understand, right?
Yes.
Why is the expenses up $100,000?
But we got those pay raises. Remember that last year we came up with the pay raises we've been holding off for quite a while. We came up with those pay raises. That's
Part of your expenses in detention, then, okay.
Good.
You know, I've been around, I worked for the sheriff's office when I got out of the Army in '96. I used to work in the OGO, and I remember how the jail tax passed. I was a jailer dispatcher. So I knew the system, what Mr. Crawford was talking about, the critical that the jail was on. I think Mayor McKinney kind of explained some things at the last meeting. In 1999, after I spoke to former Sheriff Chuck Mefford, he said, yes, there was a verbal agreement. He met with the sitting mayors and the sitting police chief and the sponsoring JP at the time on the 99 ordinance. And because of the critical condition that the county was in, so they agreed to pay for half. The jail tax was passed. There's questionables of what was discussed, what wasn't discussed. There's no recorded recordings on anything, but I know that they discussed the jail prisoner freeze. So in 2008, Chief Bailey came before the Quorum Court, and the county at that time had their own attorney. He looked it over and they said no. So J.P. McNeely passed an ordinance repealing the 99 ordinance. And so when this ordinance came up, I spoke to Chief Muniz, Chief Bailey, Mayor Reese, and Mayor McKinney and asked, has anyone talked to them about an agreement? All four of them said, no, no one has talked to them about an agreement. There is no agreement other than what was done in 2008. So my question is we're saying that we're entering an agreement. If we pass this ordinance and the cities choose not to enter into an agreement, where does it leave the city? I mean, where does it leave the county? Is the county can't force the cities because they didn't agree to this. My other issue is if we're going to charge for dispatching fees, why are you just putting it to the two cities of Bearville and Green Forest? Because Alpena uses dispatch, the rural fire department uses dispatch, ambulance services uses dispatch. I mean, if they're going to have to charge people, they charge, let's spread the wealth across the board, and not just the two cities. And that's the issues I have.
Dan?
I'll just follow up where Galen left off, because it touches on my line of thinking on this, is that all citizens of whether you live in Green Forest, Alpena, Berryville, Eureka Springs, or just a citizen of the rural part of the county, you're paying the county jails tax, you're paying taxes to support this. It seems to me that, I'd like to understand why Eureka Springs is carved out and isn't serviced by central dispatch. I mean, if we are going to, as Galen points out, charge Green Forest and Berryville, then how is it that Eureka Springs does their own? It ought to be equitable across the county. We, as a Quorum Court, should, as Larry pointed out, settle this question for everybody. If we need to step up and fund the sheriff's department more to provide the level of public safety and service that is required, then we should do so, and not try and divide up who pays for what. So I agree with what Galen said.
May I follow up on that? I was here when we got enhanced 911. That was originally discussed, but the city leaders of Eureka Springs chose not to do that because they already had enhanced 911 before Carroll County did. They did not want to turn their 911 system over, and so it had to, and I might be told speaking out of context, but it had to be something with the funding of it on the phone bill. There was dealing something with the 911 funding on the phone bill. They didn't want to turn it over, and it was agreed upon, if I remember correctly, that they wouldn't turn it over. That the Eureka Springs 911 would be a backup to this central dispatch. So.
I actually have some letters thrown up during that time because I was here since day one on this whole thing. If anybody needs to look at them.
Am I accurate on that?
You are, sir.
Yeah. Okay, good. Well, then I would say, judges, that with that exception now noted, the rest of the county ought to be treated the same.
Devin?
I have two issues with the ordinance I'd like to get out before you guys get to a vote. The first one is that if you were to pass this ordinance, it's going to have absolutely no legal effect. Okay, the county cannot order a city, and certainly a city police department, to do anything. So if you were to pass it, you're basically having the taxpayers pay to publish an ordinance that has no legal effect. The other issue is, and I can't remember who it was, maybe Mr. Swofford touched on it, is that the way the ballot title is listed is you essentially went to the voters and said, if you pass this tax, we will give you central dispatch. So the county's on the hook for central dispatch. If the cities want to pitch in and pay for central dispatch, that's great, they can do it, but the county can't require it. So those are the two issues that I have for you to consider.
Yeah.
One of the things I know in the years past, you remember this, the city of Bearville and the city of Green Forest had a rollover. When they took off Friday afternoon, the phones rolled over, which caused a problem. Since then, they both fixed that to where only your direct and nerve callers can call 911 in case there's a situation. So they've relieved a lot of strain off the phone system on dispatch over the last few years by stopping the rollover and putting in a recording system.
Sure.
I've had a chance to talk to Mr. McKinney, and I know the issues with Green Forest, and I appreciate your concern. Due to economic times, I can understand why you would not want to pay for a dispatcher. And thanks for sponsoring the bill, Larry. I'll know better than that. But this is not just a simple issue about paying for a dispatcher. It's not just paying for a dispatcher. Look back at the budget for last year. We had to take a 10% cut. Look at the money that the cities are paying their employees compared to what our county employees are getting paid. And what goes on in the jail and the sheriff's office impacts the entire county, not just the sheriff's office. The issue about 911, so they seem to talk about sharing the expense. 911 is separate from police dispatch. Our center is two operations. It's 911 and it's police dispatch. It's a 911 central dispatch because we do the entire county. Eureka Springs chose to keep theirs, but they took us to court because they said, since we're going to keep our 911, we don't want to give it up to the county. We want the county to continue to pay for the truck line. They went to court and they lost. We get all the money for 911. They chose to keep their 911 service. So we do all the 911, but they do their own police dispatching. Now, we said, make it even. What if next week Eureka Springs says, we no longer want to do our own dispatching? County, you got it. Do we have to take it?
Yes.
Okay. So look at the expense it's going to be to the county. But the thing is, I gave you the financial breakdown. We're not making money with the sales tax. We were very fortunate for about 5 years to be able to house prisoners from other counties. We were bringing in close to $300,000 a year in revenue, and we were reaching out to these counties. They didn't come to us. We were calling around to make money for the county so we could cover our expenses. And you can see what happened now that with the Jail Reform Act. Look at the loss in revenue to our county. We're not making enough to cover our expenses. So what happens? Like Larry said, the money comes out of county general. How are our county employees ever going to get a raise if we don't have the money in county general to give them a raise? And compare our salaries to the cities. Now, we're not only providing services for dispatch. We do their ACIC entries. They don't have an operator. They don't have a terminal. We do all the services for them also. We do all of the PC hearings. To save the city's money, the judge comes to our jail. We stand in for the cities. We prepare all the documents, and we're there with the judge so they don't have to come to our jail for the PC hearings. We maintain all of the towers. So any expense is at our expense. Now, These are services I am not required to provide to the cities. Yes, I can force it on them, but I don't have to provide the service. There isn't any law that says I have to provide those services to the cities. And if you look at Eureka Springs, if they chose to do their own dispatch, they're probably paying over $300,000 a year to have their dispatch. If the cities were to do their own dispatch, it's costing them the same thing. Asking for $15,000, $17,000 to make is not unreasonable whatsoever. But I think what we have to look at is the impact it has on the county, all the counties, their salaries, not just the sheriff's office. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to address this when you're done. I've listened to this, and I've studied it, and I've talked to a lot of people about it, and it comes down to money, and it comes down to the problem that we have with what I always claim is our biggest problem is our personnel. We spend a lot of money on our payroll. The sheriff can't pay his people as well as the cities pay their people. He wants this money for the dispatch, not because dispatch is hard to pay for, but so that he can have an option of getting some more money to pay his jailers or his deputies more money, so they'll be more competitive with the city police departments, I believe. I think that underlies all of this. It's not exactly what the sheriff is saying, but you got to remember, when the cities pass the sales tax, everybody in the county pays that too. Both Green Forest and Berryville are either have or are passing more sales taxes. So when I go to Walmart or I go to Powell's, I pay those city sales taxes, even though I live in the county. So we county residents are helping fund the cities. The cities will make more money off this tax. They can probably give their officers another raise, which puts our deputies farther behind, which means we'll lose more of the good ones. They'll go to the cities. We've lost, in the time I've been here, we've lost several to Eureka, Berryville, and Green Forest because the pay is better. And you can't blame them for leaving when the pay is better. We get a jailer trained, they leave. Of course, we get a road hand trained, they leave. We're at the bottom of the barrel on our pay. So to me, all of this comes down to how does the county compete in the marketplace for our personnel. We've got probably the lowest paid personnel in the county in all areas. And to increase that pay, we've got to get more money. Now the sheriff is trying to get more money from the cities. The cities are in a bind too. They don't have any extra money. But we've got to find a way to solve this problem. And I don't think this ordinance is it. I agree that the ordinance isn't written right. There isn't an agreement. We can't force it on the cities. And I'm going to vote against this ordinance. But we do need to look at a way to help the sheriff solve his problems. That's our job. Our job is to handle the money and take care of our county offices. And the sheriff is a big part of our county office. We need to find a way to help him with this.
Ron,
you know, the citizens of the cities are Carroll County residents also. They pay county taxes just like people who live in the county. You know, they're expecting the same service just as much as you are who lives in the county when you go to the assessor's office or you go to the health department, or whether they're calling 911. They're expecting that service. That's what the South Side says. The residents of the cities of Berryville and Green Forest are county residents. You know, the sheriff made a comment, you don't have to provide. I think that's what the ballot title is, that you are required to provide. You know, that's just like, you don't have to provide a county road for me because I live in the city. So are you going to charge me every time I drive down the county road? You know, I think you would love it. But that's just part of living in Carroll County. You know, you've got your city government, you've got your county government, and you've got your state government. The state don't come in and charge the residents of Carroll County to drive on a state highway or to use state facilities. That's what state sales tax is for. You know, I'm sure the state would love to have more money, you guys would love to have more money, and all the cities would love to have more money. I guarantee you, the cities would love to have that half-cent portion of the sales tax to go and charge 35. The cities are probably gonna be better off in revenue. But that's why the cities gave up that 0.5% for the jail to give it on. I think Mr. McLean and I both have the figures on what the city of Green Forest has given up. I think it was $1,340,000 last year of that money that went to the county for the half-cent service. So I think that the residents, you know, coming from Green Forest is $1.3 million.
Sheriff's next, Joe.
Well, there's definitely several issues here. Now, that ballot was not written properly because the interpretation is central dispatch, you're meeting all of dispatch. That should have been strictly 911. I talked to Boone County yesterday, I talked to Baxter County. Their 911 is separate from their police dispatch. And none of those counties do any of the dispatching for the cities, they do their own dispatching. So, again, it is not a central dispatch because it's only a 911 central dispatch, not for police dispatch. And the thing is, we are providing a lot of other services that we're not being reimbursed for. And yesterday, talking to Jamie, I understand when prisoners are brought to the jail, usually in the past, when we were in the old jail, when they had their probable cause hearings, all the jailers were, the inmates were handcuffed, walked across the street to the Berryville District Court. Officers were required to be there for the PC hearing. When we took it over at the jail, we said, we can save the city some money. We won't do that in-house. We will stand in for the officers. We'll prepare all the PC paperwork and give you that paperwork. But yesterday I found out that we don't use, except for 24 days a year, we don't use the district court. We pay Berryville $90,000 for the district court. And we do all the time pays, and we do all the docket preparation for court. I can't charge them $17,000, but we're paying $90,000 just for that district court, and we're only in there 24 days a year. But again, the key issue is that the central dispatch is 2 operations. That has to be clear, it's 2 operations. And the most important thing, what is the life of software and computers? What is it? Someone guess? 5 years or so? Years. Our systems are over 10 years old. Our jail system is a custom-made system. We cannot buy any parts off the shelf anywhere. We have to go to that contractor that did it back, I think, in Atlanta, Georgia. So we can't have anybody else come in and work on the system. I think Candy assisted recently just to take a look at if we had to replace our stations. Just for the stations, some of the software and the hardware was about $300,000, which did not even include installation and other things. So we're looking down the road at about $1 million if those systems crash. We're going to have to borrow the money to pay for it. And then we're going to be right back in that position. I remember Cindy saying many, many times, until that jail's paid off, we can't do this. Until that jail's paid off, we can't do that. We're going to be back in that same position, and our county employees, not just sheriff, deputies, dispatchers, and jailers, all county employees are not going to be getting pay raises for many years to come.
Joe, I believe you was next.
I know on the ballot, it said the county would pay for it. And then there are verbal agreements, but you know, people made verbal agreements aren't here anymore. So I have a problem with that. Maybe Lamont could straighten me out.
I wanted to ask the sheriff, you were talking about, I think Baxter County and Boone County, that they didn't do funding for the police department, but do they have an ongoing half-cent sales tax that's going for dispatch?
No, I don't think they did it on the sales tax, but they're separate operations.
I know it, but they're not doing dispatch for the cities, but they don't have a half-cent ongoing sales tax coming in all the time to use for that. If they did, they might be willing to do it for the cities.
I would suggest, because I got a feeling this is not gonna pass today, or whatever it may be, but I would suggest between time that, because I'm gonna have to get some legal advice myself. Because if you're telling me I cannot charge for those services, I don't see why I have to provide the services. But when you look at the other counties, and the fact that they are separate operations, they should remain separate operations. That they don't do any of the dispatching for the other cities. And just because we had them combined, and I agree that they were probably combined for the purpose of saving the county some money, because if I was to say, maybe one of the solutions, let's separate 911 from police dispatch. Let Sam have the 911, I'll take my police dispatch. Are we going to be required to provide the cities with the police dispatch if Sam doesn't want to? And if we split the two, we're doubling the cost of the operation of dispatch.
1 month, next, I believe.
To echo Joe, I have a problem with the whole discussion because of the oral agreement. I don't know, I wasn't here, and as far as I'm concerned, it's all speculation. I don't doubt anybody's word, but who knows? It's 13 years since the darn thing was presented to the public. I also have a problem with the definition of central dispatch. Where is it defined? I mean, I think there's a lesson to be learned. Somehow governments don't learn it. Eureka Springs just went through it a year ago, or last year, on a deer hunt. The city passed a referendum authorizing a one-time deer hunt, and then when time came to schedule it, what does one time mean? It turned out to be 4 months. So I think we as a county have brought this on ourselves. And I would suggest to the sheriff that he does consult with an attorney, because I somewhat agree that I don't believe the county is obligated to spend whatever money it takes to provide whatever people want. We live within a restricted amount of money. He prepares the budget, he can provide certain services for that money, and I don't think he's obligated to do it. And if he'll feel more comfortable getting an outside opinion, then I suggest he go for it.
Jones,
I think clearly police dispatch is a city function. I don't think any of the cities would argue, because they provide that during the day. The only question is, when they close down at night, who provides the dispatch, and that's been taken over by the sheriff because it's more efficient to handle it that way. But I go back, the function, police dispatch, is clearly a city function.
Ron?
I'd just say that I agree with Lamont and Joe about the old oral agreements. I talked to a lot of people who were on Quorum Court. Larry was here, Joe was here, several others were, and I've talked to them. Nobody remembers exactly what was discussed and what the oral agreements were, and they're meaningless anyway. They aren't binding anymore. What is binding is the ballot title, and the ballot says central dispatch. The problem there is that all it says is central dispatch. There's no 911 in there, there's nothing else. It's central dispatch. In our case, we have a central dispatch which also handles 911. So I don't think that we can really argue that that's not binding on the county. We have to spend that tax the way the ballot read and the way the voters voted for it. And they voted for that tax to pay central dispatch. So we're stuck with that. But we're also stuck with all the other problems we're talking about, which are money problems, which we've got to find a way to solve. And hitting the cities for a dispatcher is not the way to do it. Maybe the sheriff needs to look at some of the services he provides and cut them off or charge for them. Other services. I don't think he can do it for central dispatch. That was on the ballot. That's what the tax pays for. There may be other things he can. But we've got serious money problems that we're going to have to deal with.
Mr. Flake just covered what I was going to say.
Okay. Lamont and then Larry.
A follow-up to Ron. I want you to show me somewhere in writing what central dispatch means. What does it include? Where is there, do you have a definition that was part of the ballot?
No, that's what I was gonna tell you, I reviewed that again this week. There is a full-page type definition of central dispatch. It was written by Ed Robertson, provided to the Quorum Court at that time, but I don't know that there was anything legal about it, okay? That may have been his opinion, or he may have gotten it someplace else. But I've looked and looked for that, so I think if you start looking for it, you're just wasting your time. I'll be glad to show anybody that if they want to see it.
Larry?
I agree we have to provide a central dispatch. My question is what does that mean? What are the components? Does it mean answering every call after 5 o'clock in the evening in the county? Is that what it means? Does it mean answering sheriff's calls, sheriff deputies? I mean, what does it mean? Well, that's what I would like to clarify.
Okay.
Well, I'm just gonna reiterate what you said. When I explained some of what I remembered a while ago, if you remember when I got done with that, I said regardless of what was said, the ballot title said that we will provide it. All I was doing was giving a little insight to that, but the ballot title is what takes care of all of it.
Sure. Sure.
In talking, what I forgot to say last time was that if you have the opportunity to take a look at an article in the Democrat Gazette when Baxter County had their issues there regarding the cost of the jail and the dispatch, and how that was finally resolved, because it caused the sheriff not only to reduce the services in the jail, but by reducing the services in the jail, he reduced the services for the police department. When they began to realize that the revenue being brought in by the sheriff's office was tremendous, so finally the county realized that it's all tied together. It's not just dispatches, it's not police, it's all, everybody working together to bring in revenue to the county. Now, I remember, I've been to the meetings when this was brought up about the not paying for the housing repairs. Nobody remembered discussion at all about not paying for the housing of prisoners. Dispatch never came up. And it was agreed at that time, I think, the ones I can remember being there was Wheeler, Eva Reeves, I believe, I forgot the name of the other KP that was there, Larry Fry was there. Nobody knew that this was ever an agreement between the judge and the cities. But at that time it was, well, if that was the agreement, we'll honor his agreement. But that ends with his term. It's not forced on the others who take after it. So there was never any discussion at all regarding the free dispatching too. But again, I think what Lamont is saying is very true. You're going to have to get a definition of central dispatch. If I'm not doing all the dispatching, it's not central. But I am doing all the dispatching for 911. And the numbers, I think I presented them to you, just for last year. 911 calls versus police calls. There were 6,000, rounding off, there were 6,000 911 calls. There was 15,000 police calls. After hours doesn't mean anything else, because most of these calls are traffic stops. And when you make a traffic stop, what is the routine procedures of dispatch? The first thing you do, you run the tags. You get the feedback on the tags. Then you run the individuals in the vehicle for wants and warrants. And most of these police stops are traffic stops. So the majority of the work that we do in dispatch is police calls, not 911. And the thing is, what's confusing is that, and why we're having trouble here, is because if you look under 911, the judge is in charge of 911, not me. I was asked to be in charge of 911 because of the fact that we're also doing the police dispatch. So if you're combining the two, you're creating a problem right from the beginning by having two different department heads responsible for one operation. But it's two separate operations, it's not one.
Ron?
I was just going to say that when the citizens voted for this tax, they voted based on that ballot title which said operate the jail and a central dispatch. So the definition of central dispatch is very important, but the sheriff just said it. it isn't operated centrally in the county, it's not a central dispatch. So the 911 system that's operated in one place for the whole county is obviously central. The police dispatch is the one that's in question. But the other part of that is, what did the residents think when they read the ballot title and they voted? And I think clearly the residents all thought that that meant all of your dispatch services were going to be paid for with this tax.
Good.
Well, he's referring to traffic stops, but it's the bill that went passed around. The cities pay for the ACIC fields. I mean, the cities pay for that. Now, the 911 central dispatch, my question would be is, how much funding off the 911 tax on all phone lines and cell phones is going to the county for 911? And then we have the half-cent sales tax for central dispatch. So, I mean, we've got separate taxes here. We've got a tax that comes on the phone, there are taxes to the phone bills and cell phone bills for 911. Then we have the tax, the half-cent sales tax that says central dispatch. Don't say anything about police, don't say anything about fire, don't say anything about EMS. It just clearly states central dispatch, and that's where J.P. Momart saying what is the difference. Well, the difference is central dispatch all called their own there. So we've got several different funding.
Cindy's next, I believe, Ben.
I've got the 2012 year-end financial report for Carroll County on all funds. The 911, the total revenues with their beginning cash balance brought in $202,000. Their expenditures were $486,000. They had a transfer in from the jail tax of $249,000. There are a couple of other misconceptions about the money that I would like to clear up. At no time has the general fund ever paid for 911. A few years ago, the 911 was paying to the startup costs, the addressing and everything for the mapping and all that. It became obvious that could not do that as well as pay for dispatch. So that 911 mapping was moved to county general. But at no time has county general ever supplemented 911.
So we made this another category.
Nor has general fund ever supplemented jail tax.
Well, we seen that 911 wasn't going to pay for itself, so we created a new category, and county general fund funded it. But it's the same difference.
No, actually, because the revenue is different. And the 911 tax comes into the 911 fund.
Yes.
And then it is supplemented by the sales tax according to the ballot.
But I'm talking about back in earlier years, when you said the 911 wasn't enough funds to pay for mapping and everything, which is all part of 911.
The mapping and
so
threshold.
We didn't use any from county general, so we created a new category, mapping, and county general funded it.
Department, yes.
So it's the same thing.
Yes, but it was only for the mapping.
Okay.
Department, yes.
Dan, I believe you was next.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Judge. 3 or 4 things occurred to me. One, first is this draft ordinance as presented is a non-starter based on our legal interpretation. 2, this has been very educational and enlightening, and that we've all learned a lot, maybe bits and pieces of things we didn't know or thought we knew before. Because of that, we know it's not going to be resolved this morning. I would say that okay, I'll be done in a second. Is that perhaps the judge or the sheriff and the mayors can form a, I don't know if we don't need another committee, but get together and come to us with a mutually agreeable set of suggestions about how we solve this, because we're not going to figure it out at this table without that level of expertise and input. I would assume if we don't finish this discussion up pretty soon, I'm going to move the question and just get this ordinance off the table.
Can Matt have his turn before you do that.
Now, she wanted to say something.
I was just going to include that also, if you look at the laws, they've changed throughout this whole thing. At one point, 25% of the money had to come from a different entity other than just the 911 funds, and at that point, the road department also paid 25% of some of the mapping costs, and I'm not sure what else, I'd have to go back and look, but there is a law, and then they repealed, the state did away with that law. So there, you know, if you go back, you're going to have a lot of that, you're also going to have a lot of attorney general opinions in there. So there's a lot for you to look at.
Sam, like Lamont and everyone said, the three are no problems in this ballot, is, what we gotta bond to, we gotta agree to, because the way it was written. And we probably needed to have a better definition. And I remember when I went on the Quorum Court at that time, but also the jail, the Quorum Court was cleaned out. A lot of the people on it were voted off because of voting for the jail. But we've got problems with money, just like in saying that and I've seen, and money's getting out of hand, and counties are needing more money, but we need to be careful of how we work it, because we don't want to get like some states that passing tax on rainwater running off your land up to $300 max a year, and just to get more money. We're just got to be careful about that. So, well, they sort of sound like a ballot issue to come back up and straighten this all out. To me, the only way I can see it getting straightened out.
I think Dan called for the question, didn't you, Dan? Did I hear a second? Okay. Dan.
What do we do?
Lamont.
Just call the question.
Call the roll.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Deaton?
No.
Mr. Clay?
No.
Mr. McNeely?
No.
Mr. Mills?
No.
Mr. Mumma?
No.
Mr. Phillips?
No.
Mr. Reed?
I'm voting no, but I think the issue needs to be resolved.
Yeah.
Mr. Ritchie?
Ditto.
Mr. Ray?
No.
Mr. Spofford?
No.
Before we forget this one completely, can we say a couple more things, Sam?
Sure can.
I think like John and Lamont and Galen, everybody said, this needs to be resolved, and we need to find a vehicle and a mechanism for dealing with this. And I don't know what that is, and we're stuck. There's nothing we can do as JPs before the next meeting, so we're not gonna deal with anything. I think it falls to the sheriff, the mayors, the judge, to try to come up with something that they can present to us so we can try to make an informed decision and be prepared to do something, because we got big problems coming.
Dan?
I second that. Fully endorse what JP Blake just said.
Yeah. Mayor?
I want to thank you all. I know it's a problem for everybody, and everybody has funds, and I think the bottom line is like Mr. Flake said, it's a money problem for all of us, and me and my friend the sheriff, we've talked about it extensively, we still don't agree, but I think there is a money problem there, and I don't know what the solution is. I know as the mayor of Bearville, I would certainly endorse the idea of the city doing away with this half-cent temporary tax in exchange for a county half-cent tax that was put up on a per capita basis. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Like that first.
The only thing I want to say, I heard mentioned here a minute ago, I think Mr. Mumma mentioned that maybe this ballot title needed to be revisited. Whoever said that. No, we don't. And, I'll tell you why it don't. Is because if you put it to a vote again, it'll not pass, and you'll lose this half-cent sales tax that you've got coming in, and it's gonna cost the sheriff a whole lot more money than it would what he's wanting Greenport to pay. So you better leave it alone and keep your half-cent sales tax coming in to operate our jail on.
Yeah.
Not, and even leaning towards micromanagement, but Sheriff, you talked about a lot of things that you didn't used to do that you started doing out of the kindness of your heart or whatever it was, it's costing you money. I suggest you sit down with the two police chiefs and work that out. If it's costing you more money than you think it should, instead of trying to charge somebody, to just reduce that service in that area and let them take care of it.
Sheriff's next.
Yeah.
I don't think I, as a sheriff, have the right to provide free services to anyone. That to me is, I don't think that's much of a question, but I got a comment for Galen. You're talking about you paid for your ACIC. You do not have a terminal, you do not have an operator. You send your documents to us, and when we enter them into ACIC, we put your ORI number on it. So what you're paying for is the document. You're not paying for an operator, you're not paying for the entry, all you do is paying per document that's entered into ACIC.
Chief? Without a doubt, you guys have your work cut out for you. But to put this in a little more perspective from my point as a chief of police, before this tax passed, the city of Green Forest was paying $18,000 a year. That's what I had in my budget. I believe I give Mr. McNeely a copy of that. That was to pay for half a dispatcher, and we also paid for the people that we brought to the jail at that time. Now, you can factor it in inflation. We can even triple those fees. But the people of Green Forest and those who shop in Green Forest have been paying anywhere from $150,000 to $300,000 a year for the same services that I used to budget $18,000 for. So this matter does need to be resolved without a doubt. I hope it doesn't come to anybody have to cut services. I know that as a law enforcement agency, we do provide a lot of services that we don't have to, but we do because we care for the people. And I continue, on our part, we'll continue to do that. And I hope the sheriff does also. But, I don't have the answer for you, but I just wanted you to have that in perspective of what we were budgeting for the same services that we get today versus what we have paid since this tax went in there. And that's a substantial amount of money. Thanks.
Thank you, Chief. Well, we hope you gave your comments yet, Member Chairman.
I think that's where we are.
Come on.
Judge, thank you. Since the beginning of April, I have been confronted by a number of people about a SWEPCO power line plan that's cutting through Carroll County. And there have been some meetings held, and I've tried to educate myself. Since the beginning of the week, the number of calls and confrontations have increased dramatically because of a report that you, Judge, and Mayor Pate and others met with representatives from SWEPCO last October and November to get input about this project, and yet I didn't learn about it until the first person who received a registered letter on April the 2nd posted something on a local internet bulletin board about the project and saying that they had 30 days from the date the letter was sent, not the date it was received, in order to file an objection. And I just learned yesterday that the objections have to be filed through an attorney. You're required to have legal representation to do that. Without regard to the pros or cons of the project, what bothers me is that no one knew about this, and yet county representatives did. Mayor Pate knew about it. He was quoted in the Eureka Springs Independent saying he didn't think there would be much of a controversy because everybody likes electricity. Well, I like roads, I like water projects, I like other things, but, to give people 30 days notice when the opportunity existed to have advance notice, I think I feel badly for them.
Can I answer that?
Sure, I was just gonna say, I've had the same calls, and I'm not, yeah.
They came and wanted to meet at the office, and I met with them, or the CIO. And I apologize, I didn't know I was supposed to call on you all and tell you that they was there, and I'm sorry to listen.
I was gonna say, I've had the same calls Lamont has about this SWEPCO line, and why didn't anybody know about it, and the judge knew about it, and mayors knew about it early and didn't tell us. And I've explained to them that to my understanding, that the judge and the mayors get contacted by a lot of people about a lot of things, and they can't necessarily get everything out. I would, this was something that maybe should have been given to the newspapers, so the papers could put it out, so we'd all know about it. I don't think it's the judge's job to let us all know everything that comes to his office. Now, I didn't think it was such a big deal when I first heard about it, but the more people that yell at me about it, the more I start to realize that we've got special feelings in this county about Carroll Electric, and now with this SWEPCO line running through Eureka, you're fanning the same flames that Carroll Electric has set on fire over the past few years. And so you've got a very aroused populace that is complaining loudly, and like Lamont says, there's really no time to object. The system is set up to make it very difficult for the affected people to do anything. Possibly if when they came to the county, the newspapers had known, then people could have had some advance warning and started looking at it. But Sam, I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying that possibly when something like this happens, you need to call a reporter and say, hey, have you heard about this? Why don't you find out about it? And try to get it in the news and let people learn about it that way, because you certainly shouldn't and don't have to call all of us every time somebody comes to talk to you about something that may happen in the county.
I just give them a courtesy visit, and I'm sorry if I didn't please everybody down.
Two things, second of which we'll touch on this briefly, the same subject briefly, but I'd like to just preview a matter of business that will come before the Quorum Court next month, is my hope. And that deals with the Western Carroll County Ambulance District need to replace an outgoing commissioner who is with us today. I'd just like to give him an acknowledgement for the excellent work he's done. Is Chuck Olson. He's term limited out, basically, on the commission. We'll be bringing forth nominations for the Quorum Court to replace Chuck. But Chuck, thank you for your service. You've done a great job on the commission. Back to the SWEPCO power line. I'm one of those people who received a registered letter from the Matthews Campbell Rhodes and Williams law firm out of Rogers, and that line will not just go through Eureka as it traverses my property, but it takes the entire length of my property. By my estimation, 3 160-foot towers would be across the entire length of my property. So obviously I'm interested in it. I would say that the county probably has very little input as a governmental body, but to the citizens, I think your best course of action is to educate yourself. Go to the Arkansas Public Service Commission website and understand what you can and cannot do to affect the situation. And the power's coming, one way or the other, would be my guess. But it's going to be an individual citizen's responsibility to educate themselves about how they themselves are going to be affected.
Who's next? Any more JP comments, non-agenda? Jack?
One quick note, I asked Jamie to do this a couple months ago, and we've been talking about it. I used to have a business here in Carroll County, and I'm a firm believer in doing business in Carroll County when you can. But every time we do an ordinance, we have to post it. And we're paying between $60 and $70 every time we post one here in the county. We can do it in Harrison for half that, or less than half of that. And so it's something to think about. We may want to talk about in the future. I mean, we can cut our expenses in half on posting ordinances just by going to somebody else. And I hate to do that, but there again, money's money, we're trying to save something.
I agree with Jack on that, and I think that the Harrison paper qualifies as a paper of general circulation in this county, and possibly we should also check the Democrat Gazette. I don't know what they charge, but Jamie has it all. Yeah, the Carroll County News is $66.50, the Democrat Gazette $68.15, Harrison Daily Times is $32.25. So that means a lot of money to us over the course of the year.
Isn't it possible for Jamie to do this on her own, since she's the one who publishes the notices?
It's under your budget.
But, okay, but we allocate the money, but she can spend it at a particular newspaper of her choosing.
I don't have a problem with it, I figured that was y'all's call.
Yeah, we don't have to tell her where to do it.
Larry?
The problem I have with it, and I'm subscribed to the Harrison paper, but I don't know how many people in Carroll County, and this is a Carroll County governmental body, are subscribed to the Harrison paper. For that reason, I would be against it. Now, they should be able to give you the figures, Harrison paper should, on how many subscribers they have in Carroll County, for one thing, but I may be way off base, but I don't think it would be near as many as subscribe to the Carroll County News. And it is Carroll County, and we're representing Carroll County people. I mean, from my standpoint, I'm representing Oak Grove area. I don't believe there's as many people in Oak Grove area that takes Harrison paper as there is the Carroll County News.
I would first use that information as a negotiating point.
Anyone? Sheriff?
I just want to let you know, you're talking about, keeping our officers. I guess Jack already knows we lost Jennifer Sibley out of Holiday Island. She got offered a $20,000 raise to go elsewhere. We have another officer who's being courted by Fayetteville, which is also going to be about a $20,000 raise. And again, just to finish up, I won't say any more. Thank you again, Larry. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Oak Grove appreciates you.
Any more comments?
That was low.
Any more comments? Thank you all. I'd listen to the motion to adjourn. Jack, moving, 2 seconds. Dennis, all in favor? All opposed?